Thank you. Can everyone hear me in the back? Yeah, good. So I'm going to talk about design and AI today, but before I do that, I want to take you back to about 5 minutes ago, before we all sat down and started talking and listening to the talks, where we all, during the mingling and the networking portion, think back to who you talked to and what you might remember about them. Think about who might remember you and what they might remember about you and what you want them to remember about you. What made you memorable and what kind of impression did you leave on them? Maybe you came here wanting to talk about your job or AI or the tech summit because that's what we're here for. Maybe you came dressed a certain way because you wanted to leave a certain impression, or maybe you came dressed the way you always are dressed because that's the impression you want to leave out in the world. Or maybe it was just something completely out of your control and someone's just going to remember you as like the guy with the glasses. But I'm not actually here to talk about how to be the life of the party and how to like make a really big impression so everyone adds you on LinkedIn later. I'm here to talk about how do you make your product, your AI agent, your chatbot memorable? How do you have something that people, that your users are going to come back to and are going to remember that this is a product that they enjoy and it's something that's unique and it's something that has its own personality that's going to set it apart from other similar things? What do you want users to remember you and your product by? So that's what I'll be talking about today, designing a voice and a personality that's unique to you and your product and the problem that you're solving to users. We're going to do it in 3-ish, easy-ish steps. So first of all, deciding who's talking, meaning who are your users, who are you talking to? Understanding what are you talking about? What problem are you solving for them? What will you do for them? And finally, what will it sound like? What's the product voice? And in this case, the voice and the personality, when it comes to products and content design, are one and the same, because the voice is something that's very distinctive to each one of us, and it's something that is a representation of our personality. So like David said, I'm Carmel, and I come from the design side, less the engineering side. I'm an experienced and content designer and UX researcher, and I do product strategy, kind of all the things that make products make sense and make them usable and useful and memorable for users and keep them coming back. So the first step is understanding who's talking. And I keep coming back to voice and to talking, and it's on purpose because all of these digital products that we use and all these apps and websites that we're using, and of course these agents, are replacing some sort of real-life conversation that we would otherwise be having with a person out in the real world. My Tesco app is replacing me going to the store and having a conversation there with someone and asking them a question about where to find the bananas. The banking app on my phone is replacing me going to the bank and having a conversation with the banker or picking up the phone and talking to someone. All of these products and everything you might build as an agent or just generally as a digital product is going to have some sort of replacement for a real-life role in users' lives. So what I want to build with you today is a meal planning agent. So next, now that we've defined what we're going to do some meal planning. We have to understand what are we actually going to solve for users? What will we talk to them about as this meal planning persona? And for that, we need to do user research. User research is something that's going to really help us understand and define what our users need and how they talk. And how they talk is then going to define how we talk to them, because we want to have a conversation that's easygoing, that's giving off the right impression, and we do that by understanding who the other person is, because we change the way that we speak depending on who we're speaking to. So I ordered these kind of in ascending order of ease and investment, both in terms of time and money, because user research takes time and it takes money. So the first one is conversation mining, which is a practice in content design where you find where your users are and what they're saying about you, and you eavesdrop. So if you have a product now, if you're working as a part of an organization that has call recordings, feedback that users are leaving, customer support tickets, or anything like that, you can see what they're saying and what their issues are and how they're describing them and learn from that. You can also go and find them on social media. So for more Specialized or niche topics, you might go to Reddit. For older users, it's probably Facebook. For younger users, it's TikTok. Figure out where your users are talking about you or your competitors or just your general topic area, and just go in there and see what they're saying and see what they're talking about. And you can learn a ton from that, just literally like from your laptop for free. The next one that's also free is what's called guerrilla research. And that's just going and doing user interviews, usability, and research just literally out in the wild. So you can go and take your app, your product, your agent, and just like, don't be shy, go up to people on the street, go up to people in places where you want them to be using your product or in places that your product is replacing. And you can do kind of guerrilla usability testing there. You can observe them and interview them as they're using competitors. You can also do this just with friends and family if you don't want to just like accost random people on the street. And then, of course, surveys and interviews, which are more labor-intensive and time-intensive and money-intensive, but are going to give you that breadth and that depth that is really valuable in learning about your users and understanding their needs. And it's going to be tempting to do two things when you're kind of looking at this big task of user research and trying to do it quickly. One is going to be tempting to think of yourself as the user and just take yourself as the use case and think, well, these are my issues, and this is how I think about it, and this is how I talk, and just kind of checking off that list and moving on. But I really, really encourage you to talk to at least like one or two other people to get a variety of points of view and needs and opinions, because people will surprise you. Which is why I also want to warn you against the second thing that's going to be tempting to do, which is to ask Claude or ChatGPT to generate a user or 100 users and just interviewing them. And you're not going to get real human input from that. And you're not going to get those little insights, those little surprises that you'll get from talking to a user or a potential user or just another person. Because you might ask a real person a question about what do you like to eat? Because I'm building a meal planning agent, and they're actually going to talk to you about their favorite restaurant, and you might learn something brand new about that. So really, people are really, really valuable here. But AI agents are really, really useful in helping you build personas, helping you create the questions, prepare for those kind of deeper conversations with real people by honing the things that you want to ask. And of course, with all the synthesis, like you'll end up with a lot of information, hopefully, from the conversation mining and the interviewing and the talking and the transcripts. And ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity, like there's tons of user research AI tools that can make very, very quick work of analyzing all that information, so you get to the core of what you want to do with your product that you learn from your users. So I've done my user research. I looked around, I saw how people are talking about meal planning, and I decided that I want to build something that's specific to university students on a budget. I want to help them cook healthy meals in a tiny, tiny kitchen when they're living with 5 other people and they have a really small budget. And it's important to make that distinction and to understand what their needs are, because that's going to be different from building a meal planning agent for busy families or dealing with entirely different issues. So thanks to my user research, I now know what I'm going to do and who I'm talking to and what they need. And the next step is defining, okay, well, what's this going to sound like? If my product were to, walk out of my computer, walk out of the code, and start having a conversation with me, what will it sound like? What will it look like? How tall would it be? Things like that. So I'm going to go through a few tools that I like to use when I do these workshops with product teams as we're defining product voice. And this is true for any sort of product, any sort of voice. So the first one are these scales. These are my top 4 favorite scales, but you can really put anything on either end of these. And whether you do this by yourself or with your team, it's going to force you to really take a look at what you want your product to communicate and how you want it to communicate, and like make a decision. Like, what % fun is it? That's a really important distinction to make. Is it an extrovert or an introvert? Probably something that you know about products, but it's also something that's going to shape the way that it's going to communicate to users. By the way, visually too. Like when you design the thing visually, this is also going to make an impact on what color scheme you use, what icons, things like that. The next one is an emotion wheel or a feelings wheel. And you can just literally Google emotion wheel and find 15 different versions of this. And what you can do with this, you can do it in two phases. One, when you're first building the voice and the personality, you can pinpoint, again, like on the scales, how you want your product to make your users feel. Do you want them to feel calm or excited? What shade of happy do you want them to feel? There's so many different shades here. And later on, when you're building different shades of tone into your voice, you can also look at this and decide, okay, if my users are feeling something on the negative side, how do I want my product to respond? Like if my user is feeling frustrated or aggressive or mad because something has gone wrong, because things always go wrong, how do I want my product to respond? What do I want it to be? Calm? Do I want it to be optimistic? Those are things that are going to make your agent, your chatbot, your product sound much more human and really help users come back to it, especially in those negative moments, which can be real game changers for users. And finally, just asking yourself, again, going back to what would this person look like? How would they act? How would they greet me? Would they shake my hand and call me miss? Would they kind of hug me and call me bro? Would they be standoffish? Different people do different things. I'm thinking about meal planning and food, so I'm asking myself, where do they like to go out to eat with their friends? What kind of restaurant? Do they like to have a place where waiters are serving them wine and everything? There's like chill music and good ambiance? Or do they like to eat kebabs on the street? Again, two very different people. And you can do, depending on your product, you can just ask yourself any type of question that comes to mind. Are they a man or a woman, or does it matter? How old are they? Do they have an iPhone or an Android? How do they dress? Where do they like to shop? What languages do they speak? It can be anything that will help you round out who your product is as a person. And then what you do is you stick all these things together on a FigJam or a Miro board. You do a 1-hour workshop, again, by yourself or with your team. And at the end of that 1 hour, you'll end up with really interesting discussions, brand new points of view about your product, and just this fleshed out voice and personality that'll help you understand how you want your product to talk to your users. And now you can start actually building that into your agent and prompting it and giving it those guidelines. So this is what I decided to do. It's kind of small, so I'll read it out. And by the way, I did everything you're going to see here just on ChatGPT. So following my research, following all the workshopping that I did, I decided that this is a 25-year-old cooking instructor based in Dublin, specializing in low-budget healthy meals for students. I picked 25 years old because I wanted someone who's a little bit older than university students, someone who's kind of that trusted friend, but still young, still local. And this is one version of what I might get, depending on the type of person that I'm defining here. So, not a nutritionist or a chef. You're just helping your friends. You have chill dinner parties, and you have an easygoing vibe. You make everything really fun and easy and doable. And you can see that by the answer that it gave me that it's very slangy, it's very chill and friendly, and it really does sound like a friend who's talking to you, and not necessarily capitalizing all the bullet points. It's asking me, are you hungover, or do you want something bougie? Like, it's very, very casual. But on the other hand, maybe I decided that my product is, again, same role, same everything, but in this case, I want my agent to be more upscale and more serious. It's a private chef. It's someone who communicates professionalism, expertise. It's not talking about, like easy and doable. It's more about no fuss, like you might hear someone on TV talking like that. It's more about wholesome food and simplifying recipes. And you can see that the answer comes out accordingly. It's much more kind of, I would call it calm and professional. Still conversational, still light, still keeping that 25-year-old cooking instructor persona, but we end up with two very different people here, two very different conversations that can take your product in two different places. And try to imagine what each of these looks like what the person, I almost said guy because I see it as kind of like an easygoing guy on the left versus the person on the right. How would this product actually communicate going forward, and how would it keep users coming back? So you might be asking yourself at this point, why? This sounds tiring. It's a lot of work. User research takes a lot of time. And you can just tell it you're a 25-year-old, or you're just a cooking instructor, give me a meal plan, and you can put that in a nice wrapper, and then you have a product. Because these big companies have made LLMs super easy to use and super conversational, and you can just like mold that clay into anything. But the issue is that I also have that ball of clay. I can do the same thing with it. If all you're going to do is like kind of squish it around and give it to me, I can squish it around the same way, and it's going to come out a little bit differently, but I can still do the same thing. But what you do when you do that deeper research into how your users speak and put more intent into your product's voice and personality and what it sounds like, and you actually do that design work, that content design and UX design work into even just a conversational agent, instead of giving me a lump of clay that I could have just done myself, you're giving me a bowl, and a bowl is useful to me. And a bowl is something that I can actually keep using and keep coming back, and you've put into it expertise that I don't have. And now that's something that's going to be memorable to me and something that's actually useful to me. And I do want to warn you against, like another word of warning, with what happens when you start putting in more knowledge sources too. Because you've put in all this hard work. You've decided this hard work is worth it. You've built it a tone and a voice and a personality, and everything is going great. And now you're going to feed it your data sources, and you're going to train it on all this extra information that's going to make your product, the product that it is. And maybe I'm giving mine a huge nutrition data set. But as a statistical model, it's going to take that huge data set and start talking like that data set, because that's now what it knows. So it's going to weigh against what you've worked so hard to build. And now you're going to have to start doing that kind of tweaking. So it was going really, really great before, and now it sounds robotic. OK, now I'm going to strengthen my prompt. I'm going to change it around a little bit. Oh, God, now it's like going crazy, and I've overshot the personality, and now you have to do some of that tweaking back and forth until you have that good balance where it's giving you the information that you want in the tone that you want. And you can use a really simple checklist to literally keep it in check. And what I've done in the past is I like to use Claude for this. You can also use ChatGPT to take those more abstract and broad voice and personality guidelines and turn them into a checklist of kind of like ones and zeros, trues and falses, of things that you want it to hit and you want to make sure that your agent is hitting. And these might be things that you already have in your prompt, and it might be things that you don't necessarily have in your prompt, but you want to make sure that it's always writing in like a certain way, or it's always writing with no more than 2 emojis. And as you're doing that tweaking that I talked about before, you can build a custom GPT. I call them tone police GPTs, and giving it an answer one at a time, like doing your tweaking, giving it an answer, and then it can tell you, okay, you've hit 1, 2, 3, those are all good, but 4 and 5 are not hitting the mark. Here's how you can improve it. And you can work with it as a partner to help you improve the prompt on your actual agent. And when you are actually putting things into production and building your full agent, you can turn it into an evaluation agent that's going to run alongside your answer agent and flag things for you if things are going wrong. So hopefully you've built something amazing, you're generating tens of thousands of responses, you're going to need, but you've put all this work into building its personality, you're going to need and you're going to want a way to make sure that it's actually happening in every single response. And so this kind of thing can turn into an evaluation agent that can raise flags of, it's going crazy with emojis, something's going wrong, let's fix it. And that's the basic recipe. It's understanding, first of all, who you're talking to, figuring out what you're going to talk about and how you're going to do it, defining what it'll sound like, which is really the core of the personality, and who it'll sound like, who's this persona, and then tweaking it a little bit, adjusting it to taste until you have something that works for you. And that's it. Thank you.